In Australia, you get a career based on your drive and determination, not a piece of paper that tells you you're intelligent or not.
5 days a week for 7 hours a day, students go to school and tread through the exhausting school day.
Only to go home to piles and piles of seemingly endless homework assignments. All of that is balanced on top of extracurricular activities that go into the late hours of the night. If a student has control over how he or she spends their time, then why choose to spend so much of it on school? The answer is simple: pressure.
The pressure put on students to achieve above and beyond. Your future is now depending on the type of education you receive. In order to get the highest quality of education, you have to stick out above and beyond.
Get the highest test scores and volunteer as much as possible. All of this pressure leads students to cope in a very negative way. It forces students into depression, anxiety, causes early drinking habits and eating disorders, increases the number of dropouts, and even in some cases, suicide. Our issue of social justice is the pressure that American schools put on students. Students get so stressed and feel so much pressure that they drop out, develop anxiety and depression. These issues can lead to personal problems like lower grades and many other issues. Now, it's easy for a person to ask, how would depression affect a student's schoolwork? Studies have proven that depression lowers a person's motivation and their ability to learn and focus, which leads to lower grades. An American student gets an average of 3 to 4 hours of homework each night. Spending that much time on anything other than schoolwork can be stressful by itself. All of the work from each class puts huge amounts of pressure on students just to simply get it done.
Keeping your grades up is extremely important because in order to get into a state school, your GPA needs to be a minimum of 3.0. Colleges will also take your SAT score in count. The score expected by colleges is averaged at 1,500.
It seems almost impossible from an adult's eyes, let alone a student's. In order for a student to cope with all of this, some may turn to drugs and alcohol abuse. It was said that those who reported themselves with greater amounts of stress are more likely to drink to cope with the negative emotions. College students are twice as likely to have clinical depression compared to people of similar ages and backgrounds who are not in college. This depression is mainly caused by the massive amounts of work and the stress that comes from the schoolwork. Clinical depression goes to the extent of making a person believe that they would rather be dead than alive. So it leads to suicide. People with eating disorders can be characterized with the achievement-oriented personality, low self-esteem, and the drive for perfection. Those feelings and characteristics are much like those of an average student, which is the link between eating disorders and stress put on students to succeed.
The pressure put on students can have effects that are not mainly psychological, though. Some students in both high school and college just feel so overwhelmed that they decide to drop out of school. This has a negative effect on society because the dropouts can often turn to a life of crime. Majority of them don't have big goals for the future, which is why they decide to put an end to their education. So they are less worried about the consequences of the crimes they may or may not commit. As a team, Chrissy and I believe that there is an overwhelming amount of pressure put on students in order to succeed. Getting an education should be something that a person enjoys and looks forward to, not something that makes the person dread waking up in the mornings and going to school.
I have anxiety. The day I had my first big anxiety attack was a Sunday night after my cousin's wedding. I had a huge project due the next day, and I wasn't even close to having it done. I told my teacher multiple times that I was having trouble with this project, but I mean, what teacher cares about their students anymore, right? She said everyone else in the class is doing fine, so naturally I should be doing fine as well. I tried finishing the project, but I was not mentally or physically stable. I did not want to go to school the next day because I knew I would get blasted by my teacher. Surprise, surprise, I got an F on the project and had a D for the rest of the semester.
Although technology is a huge part of our society, I don't think we should be taught by it. My chemistry teacher hasn't taught me one lesson this year. I get a little stressed when I have to teach myself the whole lesson right before next class. Our responsibility as a global citizen is to simply loosen the reins. The students being affected by all this stress will be the leaders of tomorrow. If you imagine what it would be like with future leaders feeling nothing but pressure and stress that all started in their teen years, why can't we go back to the old way of teaching? We need to realize that not all students are the same. Personally, as a student, I feel that focusing on the student's passion or drive would produce a more successful future for those students. Also, parents need to realize that school is so different from when they were trekking down the halls. Teachers need to care about the students more than their paycheck. Colleges need to care more about the education and the future of their students rather than worrying about their reputation. America has advanced in so many ways. Why can't we advance the school system? Teachers need to individually evaluate each student in order for the student to get the education and attention they deserve.